if this is laylatul-qadr, and by qadr we understand the idea of destiny, okay? And for those of you who might have read my recent newsletter where I was touching on this issue and trying to connect some of these issues, and this session, I suppose, is a sort of an elaboration of that. What I was trying to, or what I always like to try and do, or always like trying to do, whatever it is, okay, whatever the issue is, it's some particular aspect of worship, some Quranic topic or theme, some period of the year, whatever the issue is, always try to frame it and understand it in the overall context of what is going on, right? And what is required of us, both in terms of the stage of our lives that we're in and how we find ourselves and where we think we are on our own journeys, number one. And number two, in the context of our kind of, our role and our responsibilities, our mandate, okay, as those who submit to the Lord of the heavens and earth and those who worship him. So you've got to put everything in its context. And so the simplistic approach to certain things, sometimes it actually prevents us from benefiting most fully. So a simple example, which obviously I talk about a lot, which is even when it comes to salah, and obviously many of you, you're aware of this, the fact that the simple approach is, oh, do your prayers, you'll get to paradise, right? Simple, right? So as long as it's done, it's fine. But as we know, that's not the case. It's not as simple as that. You've got to put it in, you've got to go deeper to appreciate what it's all about. Where does it fit in? How does it correspond with all the other actions and the deeds? And therefore, how do you make this a quality thing, right? So that this particular action really does pave the way for a blissful afterlife. But the key thing, and this is really important for us to appreciate and understand, is that oftentimes what we do is that we forget the period in between. Meaning, we forget the period in between the now and the hereafter. And the period in between is the rest of your life. So my point being is that when we now go into this period of time, this last 10 days and nights of Ramadan, we're looking for laylatul-qadr, we're asking for things, typically, we're focusing and we're emphasizing our requests in relation to how things matters in the hereafter are going to pan out, which makes complete sense, of course, and absolutely we should be doing. But we also need to appreciate that we undermine our own requests for entry into paradise, and we undermine our own request to be saved from punishment if we do not accompany those supplications in this very period of time with some serious resolutions, right? Because you see, when we ask Allah for something and we're asking him to be saved and we're asking him for forgiveness and we ask him to be entered into paradise, etc., and all of these things, what we're effectively asking for, because we know that those things, those outcomes, we have to appreciate and view it as though they do depend on our decisions and our actions. So on the one hand, you have two competing kind of ideas, right? On the one hand, you have the idea that people don't go to paradise, right, because of their deeds. They go because of Allah's mercy. Okay, there's this kind of idea. But what that means is sometimes this idea is misunderstood. What that means is that it's not the weight of the deeds in and of themselves. Okay, it's the fact that it's the approval of Allah that has been achieved, and the fact that he is generous and merciful in the way that he accounts for us, that he doesn't take care, he's not harsh in the way that he deals with our shortcomings. And so that's why fundamentally, right, it's his mercy. And therefore there is an extreme that we can go to in thinking that our deeds in and of themselves, if you like, are able to get us to such high levels. But at the same time, Allah himself says all over the Quran that it is precisely because of what you do, what you have done, that you enter paradise. I just slightly pausing there because I just hear behind me the rain has just started pouring down, and I heard some thunder as well. I don't know if you also heard somewhere where you are, but it looks like there's a lot of action going on outside. Right. The point being, though, right, is that you need to connect between these things. So the person who stands in the last 10 days and nights of Ramadan, asking and pleading and worshipping and supplicating and prostrating and reciting and all of this stuff, but doesn't accompany that with some real underlying intentions and resolutions about, practically speaking, what is actually going to improve and change in your life that corresponds with that, then this is where I think we really lose out. And what makes it especially pertinent and poignant, meaning relevant and appropriate for this time, but also sort of makes it more emotionally kind of, I don't know what the word is, more emotionally charged, let's say, is the fact is really when you do appreciate this idea of laylatul-qadr, not just as a night of power, but as a night of decree or destiny, because then it becomes really interesting. And then this idea about resolution, about intention, about what my next stage is, etc., becomes really powerful and very much in the moment. Because as I've been mentioning on various discussions and presentations in the month so far, it's like, qadr is this mysterious thing where on the one hand, you receive your destiny, but on the other hand, you also do create your destiny, right? And there's something going on in between, in the middle. And I give a very instructive, I think, example on this. At the highest level of destiny, so we sometimes think about this idea that Allah has decreed who is going to be saved and who is going to be in paradise and who's going to be in the hellfire, correct? And we know that Allah says that for example, right? That whoever God causes to stray, no one can guide that person. And whoever he guides, no one can misguide that person. And Allah guides whoever he wills upon the straight path. Isn't that true? That's correct. Yes. So then, but the problem with just looking at it like that is then it seems as though it's all just arbitrary choices. Now Allah is just arbitrarily choosing or whatever, and then that just is what happens. So then what that does, if we just focus on that element, is that it kind of, it takes away from our own agency and our own responsibility and our own sense that actually, no, we can, if you like, sort of do things and make decisions that result in outcomes. And the way to counter that, on the other hand, with this particular issue of guidance at the highest level, is the fact that, Allah says famously in the Quran, in the passage which in Surah Al-Zumar, which is the 39th chapter. So just after the very famous verse, when he says, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. That say, O my servants, who have transgressed themselves and wronged themselves, do not despair of Allah's mercy. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Allah forgives all sins. He's the most forgiving and the most merciful. Now, what I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to pull that section up because it's this section actually, and maybe now that I've mentioned it, I will maybe finish off this session today just with a recitation of this section, which is actually my favorite passage in the entire Quran, right? It's from Surah Al-Zumar. It's roughly, I think, verse 54, if I'm not mistaken, something like this. Let's have a look. I'll bring it up for it in just in a second. Yeah, it's verse 53. It starts with until the end, right? It's very, very powerful. So let's have a look, and this will illustrate the point I'm trying to make here. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this clearly. Yeah. So here on the screen you can see, right? My servants who have harmed yourselves by your own excess. Israf, asrafu mean they went too far. They've gone too far. And I think in Ramadan, when the last 10 days and nights, and we're really pleading for forgiveness and asking Allah for his mercy, like we feel that, you know what? Yeah, I went, like I've kind of gone to excess in certain things, but don't despair of God's mercy. You cannot despair. You cannot give up. You cannot feel hopeless because he forgives all sins. He's truly the most forgiving and merciful. But then, as usual with the Quran, you need to read on. Look what comes next. And I'm going to bring it back to this issue of guidance that I mentioned. But then Allah says, turn to your Lord. Submit to him before the punishment overtakes you and you can no longer be helped, right? Meaning that, yes, don't despair of his mercy. Ask and be hopeful, but anibu, turn, aslimu, submit before the punishment overtakes you and then it becomes too late. Follow the best teaching sent down to you from your Lord before the punishment suddenly takes you unaware. So Allah emphasizing the fact that basically time can be up, your time can be up very quickly, very soon. And then what he's saying is to prevent this outcome, to prevent the outcome where your soul says, woe is me for having neglected what is due to God and having been one of those who scoffed, right? So he's saying, do this now, turn back now, act now, so that you prevent yourself from a situation where you are in regret, the worst of feelings. Regret is the worst of feelings. And then look at this. Or the person says, if God had guided me, I would have joined the righteous. I would have been amongst the muttaqeen. And the muttaqeen are exactly the people that we're trying to be amongst in Ramadan, right? Like trying to grow in as people of God consciousness. But this is very, very, very powerful, this verse, very important. You cannot say, you will not be able to say on the day of judgment, if only God had guided me, then I would have been okay. Like, or you cannot blame him, basically. Even though it is the case that in some mysterious way he decrees and he in some mysterious way creates our action, etc. Right? But at the end of the day, we live and die and we suffer or benefit on the basis of our choices. Our choices. Qadr, in the end, our qadr, when we look back at our qadr will fundamentally have been consequences of our choices around the things that we can control and events and happenings and things that took place which were outside of our control. But the idea is that the straight path is a path that we go on where each step is a choice, it's a decision, it's an action, it's an intention. And then the arena or the situation around us, that changes. We can't control, right? The weather conditions, the things that are against us. So, or sometimes the moments of good fortune where things are accelerated in ways that we weren't expecting, whatever it might be. The point being is that you can't control those things, but you can control your passage through, your decisions, your choice making. But in the end, and this is critical, you cannot say, no one would be able to say, if God had guided me, then I would have been fine. Or you will not be able to say, if only I could have another chance, I would have joined those who do good. No, my messages came to you. You rejected them. You were arrogant, rejected the truth. Okay, we'll come back to this. As I said, we'll finish maybe with the recitation of this whole passage to the end. It's about maybe 5-7 minutes worth. It's really beautiful passage, very powerful, very, very powerful, and I think a great way to finish. So we'll come back to that. But my point being here is this idea of agency and responsibility, and in the context of decree. You see, I just now have this vision now for me, which I think has formulated more clearly in my mind, like this year, this Ramadan, more than ever before. But the idea that on the one hand, inna anzalnahu fi laylatul-qadr wa ma adraka ma laylatul-qadr, that we have sent it down on the night of decree or destiny. What will make you know what this great night of destiny is? It is laylatul qadri khayru min alfi shahr. It is better than 1,000 months. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر. That the angels and the ruh, right, which is understood to be Jibril, Gabriel, the archangel, right, is understood to be Gabriel. So they all descend, right, بإذن ربهم من كل أمر, by the Lord's permission, for every matter, right? And if you look elsewhere, where Allah refers to this night as a blessed night whose blessings are amplified, فيها يفرق كل أمر حكيم. That basically it's about the matters being ordained. So the idea, some idea, again, it's mysterious. It's mysterious, right? We don't witness the angels in that sense, like in that direct sense, sort of with the eyes. You might perceive or feel or sense that sense of peace, which is then described. Salam, right? Here hatta matla al-fajr, until the fajr, until the dawn begins, then there is this feeling of peace and tranquility, right, in the air. But the point being is that the angels, what we understand about the angels is that the angels is in some, again, mysterious way, facilitate the decree, the decision-making, the matters that God has decreed to sort of take place and how they will emerge and evolve. But as I said, a big part of that also is what we ourselves are deciding. And so my point is that when, and if it is the case, the angels are now descending, matters are being decided, that descent needs to be met with your assent. You need to meet that descent with your assent in terms of your, not just supplications about what's going to happen in the hereafter, but accompanying those supplications with real decisions, real conclusions, real determinations about what your life is going to look like subsequent to Ramadan, in a way that makes your supplications make sense, if you like, in a way that it aligns with us asking for paradise and us asking for forgiveness and us asking for mercy and to be saved, etc. Like, we have to show and demonstrate the determination and the humility and the qualities that are required. And so therefore, and this is why I want you just to get to maybe, and give some time just for you to think about this, is that, you need to really think carefully about, like, there's two ways in which you can do this. So many people, when you think about resolutions and habits and improvements and all this kind of thing, many people, they just start at the level of, they identify some gap, right, in their existing practice. And then it's okay, let me improve. And how can I improve that? Okay, I haven't been praying consistently. You know what? Now I'm going to pray consistently. I have to just get on doing that now. Or I'm praying consistently, but I'm not really doing it very well. So I'm really going to commit to that and really make sure I get on top of that and not delay and not think I've got time, right, later on at some point. No, because it's a matter of urgency. Or it could be in terms of some issue of character, right? Or a bad habit of some sort, where we have a recurring type of behavior or characteristic that perhaps we demonstrate with people around us, perhaps within our families or outside, and it just keeps recurring, and it's negative, and it's bad for us, and it's bad for them, and it ruins the vibe, and it's just poor character, right? And we know it's not good. And in relation to that, then our relationships and the relationships that need to be in order but aren't in order, or people have a right upon us whose rights we're not really fulfilling. You know, whatever it is, you know, just generally just wasting time, generally not having a direction in life about, okay, achieving something meaningful for the sake of Allah and for the cause of Allah. Now we can identify gaps, right, on an individual basis, and then we can try and improve those certain things, and that has its place, right? And most of all, in fact, you know, I didn't even mention, but the way in which we will maintain our engagement with the Quran. But one thing I've been saying, and I just want to, this is the last point I'll make before maybe just leaving some moments just for reflection, is that, you see, again, that approach is fine, but for me, it's not optimal. It's not the best approach that you could take to thinking about your life, because you have got to, just like I was saying earlier, just like I was saying that when I think about laylatul-qadr or Ramadan or prayer or zakah or any of these sort of things or aspects of what it means to be a believer, you need to put it in its overall context and appreciate it from the big picture, so you can put everything in its order and appreciate the wisdom of things and appreciate how to do things in the best possible way. But the same thing is with your life, right? Like everything's connected, everything's related, like all the things I just mentioned, whether it is your acts of worship, whether it is your learning and your knowledge and increasing in all of these things, whether it's giving up bad habits or your relationships and what you're trying to achieve in your life and what you're doing with your time and energy and talents and skills, like these are all connected. They're not disaggregated things. They're all connected. And you see, what they're all connected to, that's what we need to figure out. We need to figure out, like, what is the overall direction here? Like, what is my overall, like, if I was to try to capture the point of my life on this earth in one line, like, what would that be? And when I say that, I mean beyond, to worship Allah. That's too simplistic. I mean a statement that basically captures something particular to you. Meaning what's your worship of Allah? What does that look like? What's your major kind of effort and contribution and sort of state of being going to be? Like, can you capture an overall objective that you're actually trying to work towards in your life? How are you adding value in the world? Like, if you think about the prophets, for example, that was clear for them, you see. It was completely clear. Like, we know that any prophet, the point of their existence, the point of their life, the point of what they were trying to do is to create societies of monotheism. Simple, right? It's really simple. To bring people to the worship of God as opposed to other gods, and underneath that, for all of the things that underneath that to take place, to support that, to preserve that, to move it forward, etc. Right? Very clear, very clear. And within that, if you take all of the followers of prophets and their helpers, within that, they would have their role, you see. So a certain person might say, you know what, my particular sort of angle, call it strategic advantage, if you like, or the point where I'm really going to like that sort of emphasize that it becomes almost core to my being, almost becomes like the way, like if Allah was to ask you, you know, what's the one thing that you really prioritized and did in your life that you think was the best thing that you offered, the best thing that you did, the reason why you should, be considered for paradise, like what's that? And that's a really helpful way to think about it, because I think that when you double down on strengths and your passions and the things that you're keen about, the things that are innate to you in some way, right, in the context of your opportunities and the situation that you're in, and you really go deep on that, and that becomes your point of kind of excellence or ihsan, I think there's something about that. I think there's something about like that it's almost the sunnah of Allah, the way Allah has created human beings, that most human beings, when you think about most human beings, there is one or two particular characteristics that really stand out about that particular person for you, right? Now, there might be loads of things about that person, but one or two particular that really stand out, okay? And it's the same for you. Sometimes you don't even necessarily know that for yourself. You almost have to sometimes ask others, or have those kind of conversations to almost get to know yourself better. Because sometimes certain things that we're really good at, or we are our strengths of ours, etc., like are maybe natural to us, and therefore we don't kind of see it in this, we don't appreciate, like their impact and how we can maybe even utilize those skills better. But if you think of most people that you're aware of, even companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, they all have a certain type of reputation and a certain thing about them that is sort of emphatic, or the core thing. And we know also that Allah himself describes many kind of different characteristics of people. And we know that from various prophetic narrations, the idea that there's even different gates of paradise, or people who are known or particularly practice certain types of things, for example, And so what I'm saying to you is, what exactly is your goal here? What's your vision? What are you actually trying to achieve in your life? Like, you've got to be able to go on a journey to paint a picture of, where is it all going? Because then in the context of that end objective, then everything else fits in. Who you spend your time with, how you spend your time, the character and the kind of self-development that you require in order to fulfill a higher kind of achievement and a goal in your life. Yes, the nature of your relationship, then the nature of your worship. How does your worship facilitate that? And that's one thing I've been really emphasizing this Ramadan. The point is, worship is not for the sake of worship, just for the sake of it. Worship is actually these moments of solitude with Allah, which is intensified in this last period of Ramadan more than any other time. It's a launch pad, right? It's supposed to be a launch pad. It's supposed to be rocket fuel for you to go and do something in this world that means something, right? The Prophet, peace be upon him, wasn't someone who just worshipped and that's it. That's not his example. That's not his example. His example is not one of just a worshipper, that he remembered Allah, he prostrated to Allah, and he recited the Qur'an in a kind of ritual sense. That's not his example. His example is to do all of that, but all of that to be a basis of bringing about change, improving the situation. And as I put in my recent newsletter, and that's why I started with that, I always like to try and start sometimes with the context. The situation around you, in your home, in your local community, in your workplace, in your society, in some online space, right, which you are involved in, there's always things to be improved. There's always things to be done. So the question is, are you a net improver, contributor, producer, creator, right, a value adder, or are you a net sort of receiver, taker, right, a consumer, basically? I think true believers are pushed on the side of production, creation, adding value, bringing change, not being swept along by the changes that are out there and that other people are working towards, not consuming more that they are actually producing and adding value, right? There's a balance, obviously, but this is very important for us to appreciate. So what's your contribution going to be? What's your vision? What are you working towards? What small corner of the world or big sort of aspect of the world can you actually make a change in? And it doesn't matter, the scale is not the point. The point is, have you got some clear resolutions about pushing and serving Allah in the fullest possible way? And all of this is service, you see. And all of it is service. The worship, the worship and the connection on a ritual kind of basis, if you like. And all of this other stuff is all service. So what's your service? And this is key, because you see, as soon as the Prophet, peace be upon him, emerged out of his i'tikaf, what was he doing next? Back on the mission, back calling the people, back engaging, dealing with all the political issues he had to deal with, the social issues he had to deal with, trying to improve the lot for his companions, organizing the funds of the community, right? That's the point. What comes next? Don't just look at this last 10 periods of Ramadan and the hereafter. Look at the last period of Ramadan and then the first 10 days of Shawwal, right? What's next? You see, and this is really important. I think most people really kind of miss this idea. They missed it. And I think that's where the whole search for laylatul-qadr, it's like you're searching the night of destiny. So you're looking for your destiny in a sense, right? You're looking for your destiny. So you're decided facing your destiny. That's it. Like, picture the future, imagine the hereafter, but also imagine everything between now and the hereafter, because what's between now and the hereafter is going to make or break your hereafter, basically. Now, there's various things, in terms of the particulars. Obviously, now I want to, I've spoken for quite enough now. So I think there's various things in terms of the particulars around, okay, well, what and how and why and all this kind of stuff. And all these kind of things, there's various materials I've put together, and there's courses I've put together and all this kind of stuff to help with the particulars. But I think at a general level, like I think we can all within ourselves. Sometimes we all lean on or too quickly, I think, ask for, okay, well, like sort of external support with how we can achieve certain of these things or think through some of these things. But I think that we should all be at a level, our starting point at least, is spend that alone time with your Lord, right? With yourself, and really like start to take some of this stuff seriously. You know, it's like the sort of contemporary way of putting it is, especially if you are a younger person, right, is to have your midlife crisis early. Yeah, like just have the midlife crisis early. Meaning the midlife crisis is like, oh, what's going on here? Like, what's it all for? You know, what am I actually trying to achieving and doing here? Right. So you don't want to be wait until that time comes when you really feel, oh my God, right? Let that oh my God moment be in right now and feel that sense now. And to be honest, I think I have one of these every day, midlife, a daily midlife crisis, meaning you just really got to think, what direction am I going in? Is it making sense? Keep recalibrating, keep adjusting, keep improving, trying to keep moving. If you've had a bad day or period, pull yourself up, get back on it, but always think future. Like to me, and I'm not going to share this with you necessarily. I think I've shared it sometimes here and there, but I'm not going to even say it now. See, if Allah asks me, Iqbal, what were you trying to achieve on earth? What is it that you were trying to achieve for my sake, my cause? Like I have that answer ready. I have an answer ready. It's clear and it's particular to me. It's an answer that will be particular to me, not particular. Like someone else might give a similar answer, but the point being is that it's like it's thought through. I've gone through it like 1,000, God knows how many times in my head, right, and heart, and trying to really think through it. Like it's particular to me, and I'm clear about what, and I'm clear about how, and I could and I would want. In fact, I would want to. I'd love to discuss with my Lord that this is how I was thinking about things. This is how I was trying to approach things. Was that right? Like, did that make sense? Oh, that's why I want to do that. I'd want to know, right? Did it make sense the way I was thinking about things? So I looked at your revelation, I looked at the situation, I looked at all of this stuff, and this is what I came up with, right? That's being a servant of God, I think. That's truly trying to engage in a proper relationship with God. That's really trying to say, like, think about God's expectations of you, because, and in a way that you would almost be able to sort of think about how you would answer these kinds of questions. I think thinking about your accountability in that way is very powerful. But we should all be able to try to just initiate that thought process within our minds and hearts and get that going, right? And think through that carefully.